Thanks for being with us today to help us, to drive the future of clinical development. You may ask yourself, why is Christian wearing this T-shirt? And I think, there's a very good reason for this. We're all working in an industry, who is really trying to change the world, to improve the life of millions of human beings. And I think it's important that we remind ourselves this on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis. There are, however, companies and organizations outside, who are doing this not for profit, but only for the good cause. And one of these organizations is Cancer Research UK. Cancer Research UK is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, driver of clinical research exclusively focused on cancer. They are doing this for many years, and we are a very proud partner of Cancer Research UK since many years. What you can see here upwards, is a picture of a joint event that Medidata and CRUK have done at the beginning of February. That's a picture, from the so-called winter run, which took place in London. And beside being lousy cold, it was a big success because it was the first time that we had a joint team taking place. And it was a big fun event, and we very much enjoyed it of being part of your team, Stephen. And I would like to encourage you, all of you, to engage, with your local non-profit organizations. So here in Switzerland, we've got organizations like the Krebsliga Schweiz. In Germany, we've got the Deutsche Krebshilfe. It's very satisfying, It's important that we're helping these kind of organizations to drive awareness, that we're helping these kind of organizations to raise funds, because, they need some money in order to drive their world-class research as well. And so please help them, and please, help organizations like CRUK in driving awareness, and making sure that they can continue the great work that they have done for many years. We've got the great privilege, to today introduce Dr. Stephen Nabarro with us today. Stephen is CRUK's Head of Clinical Development and Data Management. He just surpassed his 10-year anniversary at CRUK. He's holding a PhD in pediatric oncology of the University College in London, and I think, there are rarely a more qualified person, when you're talking to someone who can talk about, how to drive clinical development and clinical research with oncology. And with that, I would like to welcome Stephen. Thanks for being with us today, and thanks for your partnership, and the stage is yours. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Morning, everyone. Thank you, Christian, for that warm welcome. I didn't get the memo about wearing the shirt, so I haven't got mine. But it was a great day. 10 kilometers is a lot further than I realized to run. But it was fantastic. There was 39 people from Medidata. I had 20 from my team, and it was a lot of fun. And Christian leading the way. Well, we led the way metaphorically. Time-wise, nearly everyone went quicker than us, right? But so it's first time to Basel, and really excited to be able to be here and show you and demonstrate some of the real innovation in clinical research that we're doing as a charity. So lots of you work in oncology. You'll have your own vision, statements, and objectives. This is how we articulate ours at Cancer Research UK. So in the UK, if someone was unfortunate enough in the 70s to develop cancer, they had a 1 in 4 chance of surviving for 10 years. There's been much welcome and needed progress since then. As we stand today, you have a 1 in 2 chance of developing cancer in your lifetime, and then you have a 1 in 2 chance of surviving 10 years with UK statistics. So those still aren't great odds. So our research strategy is all about trying to accelerate progress so that by 2034, 3 in 4 patients who are diagnosed with cancer will have a 10-year survival rate. So that's our vision. That's how everything we're trying to do. So I'm going to run through some case studies now. Just one slide introducing us as a charity to answer a few questions that I normally always get. So first point to make is we get no government money, so it's almost exclusively from public donations. So as of the 1st of January 2018, our balance sheet was 0. And we've got a phenomenal fundraising team that raise huge sums of money through the public that enables us to deliver some world-class research. So on the screen there's the latest published numbers on the amount of research we do. I'm going to focus on the the research, but just to make the point that we do other things as well. So cancer information for patients to support them, and also policy work, so lobbying of government. Something like plain packaging of cigarettes has been a huge piece of work that we've done. We've currently got a big initiative about obesity as the second most prevalent lifestyle choice that is affecting people and chances of developing cancer. So policy work's hugely important, but I'm now going to focus on research. So 2 facts. So Christian, I think you nearly had it right. So we're the second largest funder of cancer research in the world. So largest in Europe, and behind the NCI in the US would be the largest. So have a large role to play in the industry. So Glenn's talked to us about your rebranding and what yours looks like. Well, following our rebranding, we've got this cool icon. I love how we've taken the CRUK dots and turned it into our drug capsule to talk about what we do. So a few examples now of cancer research and the works we're doing. And one more slide just about our research strategy. So this is information from our cancer intelligence team. So the grey circles show the incidence of the various different cancer types, and the arrows show the survival rates back in the 70s, and the arrow through to the improved prognosis and survival rates from a few years ago when this analysis was done. So the rapid development is due to new drugs that people in this audience, I'm sure, have worked on to improve treatment of cancer. Many of them would have been on the RAVE platform. That's great. But one thing I want to emphasize through my talk is how what we do does not in any way compete with pharma and biotech. We're very much there to complement what you do, and in a lot of cases, where possible, collaborate together. So when we as a charity look at this type of survival rates, our focus instantly jumps to the bottom. So the 4 cancers of unmet need, as we call them, so brain, esophageal, lung, and pancreatic. So there's the level of incidence in the UK, and what you can see is there's been absolutely minimal shift in the last 30 years in survival rates. So we don't want to be a reactive funding body. We want to be a leader in oncology, really shaping the agenda of how we progress, and to really focus on these cancers of unmet need. So one very topical example of that from earlier this year would be this in the UK. So that's a picture of Tessa Giles. So she was in the Labour Party, part of Tony Blair's Labour government, was sat in cabinet. The role I instantly remember her for was she was the Olympics minister. She's now a baroness, sits in our House of Lords. And she unfortunately retired from public life and went because she developed glioblastoma. So brain cancer, as we've seen, the terrible prognosis, I think 14% survival rate, or 14% chance of 10 years survival. She's a very intelligent, articulate lady, and very recently, so I think it was last month in February, she went to the House of Lords and she gave a speech all about her cancer journey and the need for more cancer research, more treatment options for brain cancer patients. And she specifically was talking about we need more adaptive trial designs, more treatment options for patients. So very topically in the UK at the moment, and an example of where CRUK can really take a leadership role would be what we've been able to publish in the last fortnight or so off the back of that. So we've released 25 million of new money focused on trying to accelerate brain cancer research. I mentioned at the start our policy team, so they've also been able to leverage the government through the Department of Health, and specifically the National Institute for Health Research, to invest 20 million to match our pledge, so that collectively we've now got this 45 million of new money dedicated to brain cancer research. So as part of the press release, we were able to say that we've identified 2 centres of excellence. So we've got a children's brain tumour centre of excellence in Cambridge that will be led by Professor Richard Gilbertson, and also the Institute of Cancer Research in London. So centres of excellence for that research, and hopefully going to really try and drive the agenda and put that call to arms out to the network to come up with new research proposals for this much needed tumour type. So that's topical, so I thought I'd create a slide about that. Another broad example about innovation would be grand challenges. So this has got to be the most ambitious funding grant in the world in cancer today. So the idea of this is to bring together multidisciplinary teams, international teams, to try and tackle what we consider the biggest barriers in cancer research. So we brought together leading academics, clinicians, patients to really identify the biggest barriers in cancer research today with this 20 million grant over 5 years to give people that freedom to try novel approaches at scale and see what they can do, which is hugely exciting. So a little bit more about it. So the first grants were awarded just over a year ago. So in four different groups got their 20 million. I'll just point out the top right one. So creating virtual reality maps of tumors. So I mentioned this one because there's Swiss collaborators are involved in this one. So I thought I should mention it. So being led by Professor Greg Hannon out of Cambridge, collaborators in Switzerland and the US, trying to take breast cancer biopsies from patients through taking multiple layers, analyzing it traditional ways, also molecularly characterize it, rebuild it as 3D tumors that through virtual reality, researchers can go in and look at the microenvironment, what immune system cells are next to what, and just look at it from a whole new perspective with the hope that it can drive novel understanding, diagnosis, and ultimately treatments of breast cancer patients in that instance. So we've just had our second wave of grand challenges. So we had, if I remember correctly, 134 applicants, 40 countries, and we've just whittled it down to the short list of the top 10. And later this year, we'll award the grants to the most pioneering and innovative research. Well, as an outsider looking in, so I don't work in the grand challenges and the administrating of grants, but what I found fascinating was the patient involvement and the patient centricity of this. So patient centricity, huge buzzword in what we're doing in clinical trials, but equally can play a really important role in this type of setting as well. So in defining what the biggest challenges and barriers were in oncology, the patients were in all the workshops contributing to the ideas. Every single application has to have a patient linked with it. The patient panel were integral with the scientists in deciding which applications and proposals were taken forward. So I put up a quote there from Jim. So he's one of the people that actually sits on a sounding board that now critiques and reviews every consent form and every protocol we write for the trials that we run, and has been hugely helpful for improving the quality of our trials. So his quote would be, the grand challenge is proof that collaboration between those affected by cancer and those tackling it through research benefits everyone, no matter their relationship with the disease. So patient involvement in a novel way, I thought I'd bring that up. So those are broad things. Now trying to hone into what we'll do, which is clinical trials. So we have a stratified medicine program at Cancer Research UK that we're running nationally, involving a national lung matrix trial. So I wanted to give you an update and mention this. So started several years ago now as a proof of principle, trying to look at the feasibility of doing this in the UK. So in the pink bars, you can see there, you access 9,000 patients, got biopsy from their tumors, sent it to technical hubs, Illumina as a next generation sequencing panel to analyze it, fed that back to the clinical centers, and we actually made that repository of information available to researchers to use. So this was just a proof of principle that at a national level, working with the NHS, involving multiple partners, it was doable. And I think the numbers there on the left highlight that it's all very successful, showing that you can run a national screening program in the UK. That's not overly interesting because it doesn't benefit any patients. So the next follow-on trial is where it gets exciting, which is actually using this to drive patient benefit. So in this case, it was in lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, one of our cancers of unmet need. And CRUK plays a pivotal role because we can really act as that broker, bringing together various strategic partners. So we can work with the NHS. So I think we have 70 NHS trusts in the UK recruiting patients and sending us screening samples. We work with Illumina, who have created a bespoke NGS panel for us for non-small cell lung cancer. The chief investigator would be Professor Gary Middleton in Birmingham. And we currently have 2 partners, so Pfizer and AZ, bringing their drugs to the table for us to run. So the way it works is great. So we've been able to have 70 trusts throughout the UK, screened over 3,000 patients. They all go through the Illumina NGS panel to help identify what particular trials would best suit those patients based on their molecular characterization. So to show you a little bit more information about it, patients present with the disease, we get access to excess biopsy from the time of diagnosis, from the formalin-fixed paraffin-embedded block. They go on and have their first-line treatment. If they unfortunately relapse, we have all that information from the NGS data about what clinical trials might be suitable for them, and then they can be enrolled in. So we've got 21 cohorts with drugs that are targeting specific genetic mutations, currently available from AZ and Pfizer. Hoping to build that. Some of you in this room may be aware of it, may not from what's happening internally, but we've currently got 3 more partners, 2 that have signed and are coming on board, but sadly not yet press release, and another one that we're working with that's hopefully close to crossing the line. And then we'll be able to open a load more cohorts in this umbrella trial, offering treatments to patients. So very much, yeah, the right drug to the right patient, the right location at the right time in their treatment and course of cancer. So to me, that's a really exciting opportunity. Lung cancer, I guess, is an easier one to go for because there are a lot of well-known targets of what we can try and go for when you're thinking precision medicine. Pancreatic cancer, more difficult. So there's not a lot of targets you can go for, not a lot of, so therefore you've got to look at it more holistically. So this would be a more recent precision medicine program, which we call Precision Panc. So this is being led by Professor Andrew Bianchian out of Glasgow. So it's more, yeah, in this cyclic schematic here, what you need to start with is getting patient samples while they're on the trial. So you can run organoids, PDX models, so patient-derived xenografts, patient-derived cell lines, really do that discovery work to discover new targets in the drug discovery space, then move to preclinical where you can generate biomarkers, everything else that goes with the preclinical package, and then bring that back through to clinical trials, which would be a wave 2 of trials, which will be molecularly characterized and in a more precision medicine style like you saw in the National Lung Matrix. So as it stands, these are the 3 trials that are open, molecular characterization of all the patients going in, gaining tumor biopsies that we can then use to fuel discovery work with the hope that within 18 months that drug discovery and preclinical will flow through back round to a next wave of very targeted treatments for newly identified targets for this disease. That's the point I've made there. So those are examples of what CRUK can do in precision medicine and trials that we fund. We don't manage those and sponsor them ourselves, but there are a subset of trials that we do. So that's my day job in clinical operations and data management. So again, not competing with pharma, but trying to do trials that wouldn't otherwise happen and working very much in collaboration. So if you saw a typical pipeline of drug discovery getting a drug to market, that's what it'd look like. Our expertise in-house is preclinical, taking lead candidate through to regulatory submissions. Our sweet spot is the first-in-human trials. And then we've got one randomized phase 2 using INRAVE, not in balance, RTMS, right? Got it. But what's really cool is within CRUK, we actually have drug discover functionality. So we have a therapeutic discovery lab. Historically, that's set quite separate to us. It's now we've all come together in a therapeutic innovation department. And just before Christmas, some great news. Ideal Christmas present was a collaboration, a 5-year drug discovery collaboration with Celgene. So our TDL lab has relationships and collaborations with industry on specific themes. This theme would be messenger RNA translation with the hope of discovering new targets. But what's novel about it is it will then also flow through so that where appropriate, we can then run those first-in-human trials as well before it all passes back to Celgene and moves onward. So a great opportunity for collaboration there. Just another way of reiterating our roles. I think we're quite unique in the non-commercial world, that we have our own manufacturing facility for biologics, small molecules, can do all the regulatory workup, and like everyone else, can then do the early phase clinical trials. We work with industry and academia. So we have a model called commercial development partnership. So it might be a drug sat on a shelf with large pharma that they've changed strategic focus, or it could be a biotech that has limited capability, resource, or expertise. Come to us, give us the drug, we run that first-in-human trial for you, shared risk, shared reward, milestone payments and royalties afterwards, and it really helps develop drugs that might not otherwise progress. I added the Scrip Awards on there. That was just for you, Glenn, as we've now won one as well as yourselves. So chuffed since we last spoke. So most recent Scrip Awards was CRUK won with Bicycle Therapeutics. So a novel collaboration using their lead asset, which is a bicyclic peptide that delivers a toxic payload to the tumor, in this case expressing matrix metalloproteinase. So yeah, awesome opportunity to use a lead asset of a biotech and really collaborate. And that trial's just opened and treated its first patient a couple of weeks ago. So as I say, we're very unique. We bridge academia and industry, free of commercial risk. Everything we do is driven by the patient benefit, which makes it a great opportunity, a great place to work. We're 25 years old, been doing this 25 years, taken 140 new drugs into humans for the first time, and then 6 of them have now gone to be licensed. So one is abiraterone, so I use this one just because it's the first trial I ever worked on as a CRA. So we funded basic research and drug discovery at the Institute of Cancer Research. They had a potentially interesting target. We helped at commercial partnerships arm, helped them form a spin-out company. We ran the first in human trials. They then, after our trials, that was then all acquired by Janssen, who've done the late phase trials, taken it to market, and licensed as and marketed as Zytiga to treat castration-resistant prostate cancer. And I think there are 16,000 men in the UK a year eligible for this treatment and 200,000 a year worldwide, which is amazing to see our role and our contribution to that. So I guess I've tried to talk about the innovation we can play as a charity, and the innovation spans the partnerships of how we work with pharma and biotech, the really novel projects, high risk that others might not want to do. And then finally, we need to be innovative in our processes. So, and this is a quick example of that. So like all sponsors here, we all want to be agile, be able to look at our clinical trial data to make real-time decisions in early as possible to drive the clinical trial program, when to progress, when to terminate the trial, and just use that emerging data. And one opportunity we've had to do that is a collaboration with our Cancer Research UK Manchester Institute. So I've got a couple of slides taken from them just to use to explain it. So this is something that came out of AstraZeneca's research. Professor Andrew Hughes and Dr. Donald Launders, they took it to Manchester when they went to University of Manchester, where they're CRUK funded, hence our link up. And they're really trying to come up with technology to better engage patients and improve decision making. So perfect opportunity to work together. So we use something they've developed called React to take in our pilot, what we're doing is they're taking the data out of RAVE, mapping it into their system. It's a system built by clinicians, for clinicians, to try and help our principal investigators and in-house medics analyze that data to make real-time decisions. So we help them develop the product by thinking of what correlations you might want to be able to see to make decisions on the trial, and then we get to use it for free in return. So that's a win-win, right? So I'm not going to stand here in front of people from Medidata and talk to you about alternative technology. I have put you guys in touch and you're talking, and I'm very pleased to see. But here's some of the examples where it's great. So you can look at adverse event data, you can compare it and correlate genomic data with the efficacy data as you need, and it's something we're going to build into our trials. So I remember Professor Andrew Hughes giving me an example of one of his AZ trials where if you had a traditional waterfall plot of the responses, some patients were progressing, some patients responding, looks great when you look at overall tumor burden. When you then drilled into that data using this analysis, what you could show is that all the primary lesions, even in the patients that are overall responding, they were all growing. So you could actually make the decision to terminate that project earlier rather than wait until the end of the trial and the readout to have found that out. And equally, the idea we can now be able to put our PK lab data in there and correlate that with the efficacy data is stuff that our translational scientists are excited about. Last example was on the theme of collaboration, and again, the role technology can play in this. So it's a story of 737. So diagram up there is cell cycle, highlighting several checkpoints along the way. So 737 as a drug happens to inhibit the checkpoint inhibitor 1, check 1, prevents the cells replicating DNA, drives it down the apoptotic pathway. So we were excited about doing this as a first-in-class or first-in-human treatment as a monotherapy for tumors with a disrupted DNA damage response pathway, or in combination with chemotherapy to potentiate the efficacy of the chemotherapy agent. So this is a drug that was funded by a venture capitalist called the CRT Pioneer Fund that works very closely with us. We then run and manage and sponsor the early phase trials. And what was great was we opened the trial, we treated some patients, and then along came a third party, Sierra Oncology, who wanted to acquire the rights to the drug. So we're only here for patient benefits. So if some biotech wants to come in and throw a lot of money at it to open it internationally with a whole load more tumor types, a whole load more different combinations, that's better for patient benefits. So yes, let's do it. Let's transition sponsorship midway through a study. I've not done that before. That sounds fun, right? That's something new to try. And then the challenge when we then heard was, it is critical that the trials are not put on hold during this transition. So I think it was all in the press release, so I can say it, but something like 5 to 10 million for the transfer of the rights, something around 2 million to do this transfer within less than 3 months, and then royalties, milestone payments as it progresses, and royalties. So that's quite a tough challenge for ClinOps, with my ClinOps and data management hats on. So Sierra had never done this before, we'd not done it, their CROs who they were going to get to monitor the trials had not done it, and our investigators had never done this. So, like I say, as a project timeline, we'd open the 2 trials, a monotherapy in combination, we had about 6 patients on each. Suddenly, Sierra granted the license, we got 3 months to get everything to them with no downtime on recruitment, right? So that was fun. So if you think of the steps involved, we had to do an amendment to change sponsor, get regulatory, ethical, local hospital approvals. We're a non-commercial sponsor. We don't pay our sites. They're a commercial sponsor. They need to negotiate all the commercial costings with all the locations. We had to terminate all our contracts with those locations. But the easiest bit of all was the data management side. So when we had our first meeting and they're like, oh, UK academic, they were like, you're going to be using paper CRS. We're like, no, we use Rave. They use Rave. So it was the easiest bit. Their faces lit up when we had that conversation. So it was really simple. So they took our CRF design, built it on their own URL. We then had a maximum of a 1-week downtime. I think it was 2 days was all we needed in the end, where we got sites to get up to date with data flow on our trials. We waited till we'd been through a dose review meeting, so there was nothing time critical. Told them to stop. Sierra then uploaded the data at their end. We did the required QC. All that site staff saw was it changed URL that they had to go to enter the data. There was no new training, same monitors, everything. So we transferred data management. We remained as sponsor using Sierra and their data management CRO. And then when all the regulatory and ethical approvals came through, contracts were signed on a set day, we just pushed the button and stopped our database and sponsorship transferred. So to me, it was a nice example of the role that technology was able to play in that instance. So that was trying to be a whistle-stop tour of the role of cancer research and the research, the innovation we're able to do through precision medicine, through trials we sponsor ourselves, how we work and collaborate with pharma and biotech. But I always have to remind myself at the end of the day is that we're only able to do this because of the money that the public are able to raise, which is fantastic. So similar picture to Christian. So the winter run was a wonderful opportunity to remind us to see all the people doing the running, what it means to them, and the money that it raises so we can carry on doing innovative research like that. So I shall stop there. Thank you.